We all have different experiences and perspectives in PPC, but I bet there's something that you and I will definitely agree on. We trust the ad platforms less today than we used to. Less transparency, less control, privacy regulations, data thresholds. This stuff is getting harder. Let's talk about it. This is PPC Zone, December 2024, in PPC We Trust. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I use the pronoun she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of Inside Google Ads. I created PPC Zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Whether you're tuning in live, watching the replay on YouTube or LinkedIn, or listening in your podcast app, here's what you can expect. 3 speakers will share their expertise in a 7-minute presentation each. Then we'll answer your questions in a live panel and wrap it all up in under an hour. PPC Zone is exclusively sponsored by Optmyzr, one of the leading automation PPC management suites to help you run your Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and paid social ads. Thanks to Optmyzr, I can continue to bring you this live global event for free each month, so we can continue to elevate new perspectives in our industry. If you want to use industry-leading tools like the PPC Investigator or Campaign Automator, start your free full functionality trial at optmyzr.com. That's optmyzr.com. First up in the zone is the founder of True Pono Consulting. Hailing from Wichita, Kansas, she has been working in healthcare marketing for a decade. Having built and ran hundreds of Google and Meta ads, she is an expert in virtually every healthcare service line campaign. Today, she's here to tell us about Google Ads in the healthcare vertical. Please welcome Abby Nelson.
Thanks so much, Jill. We'll get right into it. So I'm covering Google Ads in the healthcare vertical, which is my specialty. So we're going to start off with one of the major things that I walk my clients through, which is patient acquisition. So we utilize Google Ads in order to get patients through the door for their hospital and healthcare systems. So a few things that we do know: 77% of patients are searching for their healthcare providers online. So I work with a lot of healthcare and hospital systems, and I recommend to them to leverage localized Google Ads campaigns that are capturing those high intent searchers at the point of need where they are scheduling appointments. So I do want to cover some challenges that we're aware of in the healthcare industry. So this is a very strict regulatory environment that we are dealing with when we're talking about advertising. We also know that there's a lot of intense competition for high value keywords for certain service lines, and that can drive up costs for Google search ads. We also know that patients have very diverse needs. It's things like immediate care needs, routine checkups, as well as very precise treatments that they are needing as well. Google Ads offers a direct path to connect those patients at the point of search with the providers, where they're actively seeking out specific procedures, types of treatments, and healthcare providers. So we do know that effective campaigns can help bridge that gap between patient needs and their healthcare services that they're trying to get. So from a lot of trial and error, I want to highlight what does work and avoid what doesn't work. So there's some things that we definitely want to utilize with Google Ads that we know work. So we can do the patient acquisition campaigns through highly targeted search campaigns. We utilize those responsive search ads, and we adapt them based on the search queries that we know are coming through and the keywords that best meet their needs. We utilize very tight keyword lists. This just helps us reduce those costs, and we're really focused on the specific providers and treatments that we know that these patients needs. There are things that we simply cannot do for healthcare campaigns. So we can't utilize any remarketing campaigns. This is restricted in not only in Google Ads, but overall in the healthcare vertical. It's ethically not responsible to use remarketing campaigns. We can't use shopping ads because obviously patients aren't necessarily shopping for any healthcare providers. And then we do not utilize dynamic search ads simply because there's a lot of compliance issues that these healthcare systems have to deal with. And then we don't use calls from ads within Google Ads just because we have some concerns about how Google would utilize that data. So the big things here are making sure that I'm running, HIPAA compliant campaigns. I'd also recommend that we add in a layer of additional secure conversion tracking. There's a lot of different vendors out there that utilize that, and it just helps encrypt any, protective health information that would come through from, form fills or calls. And then I also recommend using a separate secure call tracking system so that we're able to capture those calls as well. So the big thing that I always try and get across with my clients is the cost per acquisition. I'm sure you all are well aware of that. So we do see much higher cost per acquisitions in a lot of healthcare campaigns that we run. There's a variety of reasons. So we have, the strict regulatory requirements, the high competition for keywords. We do see some lower CPAs for service lines like urgent care and primary care from that $30 to $100 range. But for very specialized service lines, it's not uncommon to see cost per acquisitions between $300 to over $1,000. Reasons being, we've got a very niche audience. They have very specific medical needs. It's also a very long decision-making journey. For instance, if I'm shopping for shoes online, I might make that decision within minutes to an hour. Whereas these patients are making very complex medical decisions that takes them days, weeks, months to decide on a provider or treatment plan. And then, for that $1,000 CPA for a service line such as oncology, cancer treatment, that's justifiable because we have a longer potential lifetime revenue that can be higher for those types of treatments. So it's understandable for those. And then we also have some considerations regarding the geographics. So urban areas, we're going to see a lot more competition. So higher CPAs are also expected there. I always use the scenario of Kansas versus Miami. $1,000 gets you a lot more spend in Kansas versus Miami. So you're going to expect to see higher CPAs. And how we mitigate that is, a lot of times for those very densely populated areas, we recommend, reducing that geo-targeting 15 to 20 miles, whereas in very rural areas, you could have a 100-mile radius. But what I've always talked to my clients about, it's essential to view that cost per acquisition as a broader patient acquisition strategy that also meets their immediate and long-term needs. So the winning strategies, best practices, and I'm sure a lot of these are very familiar to you all. We utilize a lot of extensive negative keyword lists. Google does not know healthcare very well. So unfortunately, they view an orthopedic surgeon and a podiatrist as essentially the same thing. So we have to very carefully monitor what keywords we have or searches that we have coming in and add those to extensive negative keyword lists. Obviously, calls to action is going to be a very big thing here. We want people scheduling appointments, optimizing those landing pages for speed and clarity and ensuring that they're mobile friendly, as we know majority of searches are coming through on mobile now. Clear, compelling ad copy is key. If the ad mentions same-day appointments, this should also be reflected in the landing page. And then speaking directly to those patient needs and avoiding any clinical terms. Simply said, patients don't know the clinical terms. It really needs to be simple and approachable in the ad copy. And then the biggest point here is just ensuring that we're tracking everything from calls, form submissions, appointment bookings in order to measure ad performance accurately and optimize for that lowest point of conversion. But in summary, Google Ads, I know this from running hundreds, if not thousands of healthcare ads, are effective in attracting and converting patients, and just ensuring that clear messaging and a seamless user experience is going to be really key in driving measurable results. Thank you all, and let me know if you have any questions in the healthcare vertical.
Thank you so much, Abby, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. If you'd like to connect with Abby Nelson, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Abby, be sure to type it into the chat now if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn, and we'll be sure to ask her during our upcoming live panel. PPC Zone is exclusively sponsored by Optmyzr, one of the leading automation PPC management suites to help you run your Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and paid social ads. Thanks to Optmyzr, I can continue to bring you this live global event for free each month so we can continue to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. If you want to use industry-leading tools like the PPC Investigator or Campaign Automator, start your free full functionality trial at optmyzr.com. That's optmyzr.com. Next up in the zone, this speaker is the co-founder of Marcode, a paid search intelligence tool. He's worked in digital for 15 years and is focused on breaking out of the black box to improve campaigns. Today, he's sharing his perspective on ad hijacking in paid search. Please welcome Andy Cooney.
Thanks a lot, Jyll. I'm going to get straight into it as well. So I'm going to be talking about ad hijacking, which is a bit of a hidden menace. So I'll start by saying, who wouldn't want a 200% reduction in brand search CPC while gaining more clicks? Who wouldn't want less for more? Who wouldn't want a massive increase in brand revenue, especially if brand is a considerable part of your paid search program? None of these examples came from things like landing pages or ad copy or new campaign types. It came from stopping a problem, and a problem that's largely hidden from most people. Both of those clients were being impacted by affiliate hijacking. Now, I'm going to go back to about 2 years ago when me and my co-founder started Marcode. We thought Google isn't giving enough insights anymore, so we need to give people other data that looks at what's going on. We went out and we looked for ads, such as this one for Currys, big electrical retailer here in the UK, that appeared yesterday for the keyword Currys. Now, this looks like a regular brand ad. There's maybe one small mistake in it, but largely looks fine. But if we look at who's running the ad, and this is one of the things that we do at scale in Marcode, we could see that this ad is being run by an advertiser based in China. Now, we saw this and we thought, what's going on here? And we also saw that Google only serves one ad per domain. So in this example, Curry's ad that they were bidding on is not served because this one is. And this is happening all over the place. So why are they doing this? Well, to understand why they're doing it, we look at the click path. So this is taken from within Marcode. And what we're doing here is following the click and analyzing what happens. What you can see is that affiliate details are being added to the user who clicks this, which means that any sales that are made, this affiliate associated with these details, gets a percentage of that sale and makes some money, which offsets the cost of running those ads. Now, the affiliates go to great lengths to hide their details from people. It's one of the things that we have to do is get around those. So it means that brands don't know this is happening. They see ads that look just like theirs. They click on them. They don't see any details. They just don't know it's there. And it has big implications. So CPCs are inflated, more competition, more people bidding for the same keywords, competing against yourself. It drives it up. Revenue is attributed to affiliates rather than search. So those clicks that are going and having affiliate details added to them will be attributed to the affiliate channel, which means that budget decisions might be taken where it's moved away from search. Search performance doesn't look as good. And finally, the brand are paying commission on clicks they would have either got through paid search or probably through SEO. And that means that marketing budget as a whole is going down. So there's less money to go around for everyone. So it can cause big problems. It's impacted by more or less anyone who has an affiliate program that's active and generous, that has a lot of brand search. So big companies in the UK, not so much in the US. So anyone where there's just a lot of brand search, which isn't super competitive. So retail, travel, beauty and cosmetics, all impacted a lot. You can see the percentage hijack number there from brands that we checked a few months ago. Things like medical from the last talk, or finance, gambling, where there's lots of bidding and high CPCs, competitive biddings, probably won't be as impacted by this. There's a little stat there about what we did over Black Friday. So we checked 250 brands over Black Friday, and 65% of them had this happening to them. So 65% were being impacted by this. And I would wager quite a lot of them do not know that this is even happening. And it can get really, really substantial. So this chart shows the type of ad that we saw in paid position 1 for that percentage of the day. And what you can see is that the red, which is hijacker, goes up, and some days it's up to 45% of searches for a brand keyword that has a monthly search volume, 673,000 searches, had a hijacker's ad in pay P1, so it can get to significant amounts of volume and revenue. How do you as a PPC practitioner spot this happening? There's a few telltale signs, such as sudden spikes in brand PPC or sudden drops in revenue that are inexplainable. So you might see this happening, and you can't say, you know, it's not more competition, it's not any changes that we've particularly made, it's something that is just, you know, started happening. You might see affiliates suddenly performing well, or the interesting one is bad ad copy being spotted in the wild. That's often one that we see as well. So then how do we stop it from happening if you think it's happening? Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do purely from a PPC perspective. You can report the ads to Google. That sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. You can bid more aggressively, but it's not a long-term solution. Ultimately, you have to work with your affiliate team or your affiliate network to get them to take action. So the 3 steps are making sure that affiliates are being vetted thoroughly, that they're not allowed to brand bid. There's compliance guidelines in there. And if you're working with any sub-networks in particular, that's a big flag. So ask these questions to your affiliate team. Next is proactive monitoring. Marco does this, but you can also look across your data to look for those spikes in revenue, drops in revenue, see if it looks too good to be true or looks like it can be a problem. And then working with your affiliate team to take swift action. So removal of anyone who can't explain where their revenues come from, anyone who's found breaking the rules, get those kicked off so that they can't monetize the clicks, so that they cannot then run it. They won't then run the ads, and it won't impact your brand performance. Thank you for listening, and hopefully if anyone's got this issue, they'll be able to go out and get that brand performance back on track.
Thank you so much, Andy, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. If you'd like to connect with Andy, you can find him on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for him, be sure to type it into the chat now if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn, and I'll be sure to ask him your questions during our upcoming live panel. If you're just tuning in, PPC Zone is exclusively sponsored by Optmyzr, one of the leading automation PPC management suites to help you run your Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and paid social ads. Thanks to Optmyzr, I can continue to bring you this live global event for free each month, so we can continue to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. If you want to use industry-leading tools like the PPC Investigator or Campaign Automator, start your free full functionality trial at optmyzr.com. That's OPTMYZR.com. Our final speaker in the Zone today is the founder of HopSkip Media, a PPC powerhouse with over 16 years of experience. This former Google Partners Ambassador and rising star has spoken at top marketing conferences. In fact, I had the pleasure of hanging out with her IRL at HeroConf in San Diego recently. We're about to hear her explain how to get transparency and accountability in AI-driven PPC campaigns. Please welcome Ameet Khabra. I'm so sorry to jump back in, Ameet. You're on mute right now.
Sorry.
Now we got you. Please welcome Ameet Khabra.
Oh gosh, I don't even remember what I said. We're talking transparency and accountability in AI-driven PPC campaigns. We only have 7 minutes, so let's get into it. So there's a lot of things that kind of keep me up at night, and fortunately or unfortunately, really depends on how you look at it. Most of it is usually regarding Google Ads, and lately, more specifically, it's been me thinking about the black box kind of nature of AI in Google Ads. It's fascinating and terrifying all at the same time. Real-time decisions are being made off of complex algorithms when we see a smart bidding strategy adjust its bid, which is just so freaking cool and also kind of just scary at the same time. So for me, the issue comes in as an advertiser is when we can't see why the decisions are being made. It creates this transparency gap that I feel like both affects us strategically, but also the relationship that we have with our clients. How are we supposed to explain performance changes to a client when I can't fully track or even explain why the machine made XYZ decision? We're not trying to understand the technology at this point as it continues to develop, although, I mean, obviously we are, but we're also trying to maintain that level of trust and communication with our clients so they can continue that with their customers. So speaking of sleepless nights, I have a hunch that a lot of lawyers have a tendency to sleep a lot of or lose a lot of sleep over privacy and compliance. AI relies on a vast amount of data, which is raising obviously data privacy and regulatory compliance concerns. Advertisers really need to navigate how to better understand what data the AI is collecting, how it's using it, and then who also has access to it at the end of it all. Non-compliance to regulations like GDPR and CCPA can have some pretty severe consequences, like legal action. There's reputation damage, but the most significant, or at least for me, is the substantial fines. GDPR has gone as far as saying that they'll fine not up to 20 million euros or 4% of global revenue, which is just absolutely crazy. The solution, I think, is pretty methodical and requires just a few action steps really here. The first is mapping your data flow, so understanding exactly how data moves through your systems, understanding obviously how it's collected, processed, and stored. The second is establishing clear protocols around data handling and user consent. And then finally, keeping those privacy policies updated so they reflect your current practices, especially. So basically, I'm just saying to prioritize documentation, transparency, and accountability. So I guess the next line of question is, well, how do we exactly do that, Ameet? And I'm for full transparency, this is still something that is changing and I'm still kind of learning, but this is what I think works best currently. So first is identifying obviously the tech stack that you've got that has implemented AI. Be thorough about it as much as you possibly can. Then what you want to do is map out exactly what data tools or what data these tools have access to and how they're using it. And then creating clear protocols for data handling and implement clear regular compliance checks. So something that I've noticed about myself is that I kind of have shiny object syndrome. I see something new and I desperately want to try it, especially when it comes to AI. But with that being said, I think there needs to be this moment of us going backwards and saying, hey, do we actually really need this? Do we really need to check this out? Do we need, do we need it? And I think one of the questions to really ask is, one is to truly understand what the implications are about using it before you jump in. Because really at this point, I think what it'll do is actually help us prevent issues versus having to deal with the aftermath. If we already understand what this tool is doing and it might not be doing exactly what aligns with our values, or maybe it doesn't do exactly what we thought, we'll be able to mitigate any aftermath if we just kind of take care of it right away and look at that tool and look at that feature and really try to determine whether or not that's something that we want to use. Because when a new feature comes out, everybody's really great about talking about the capabilities of AI and how amazing it is. But I feel like a lot of people don't have these conversations about the limitations and the drawbacks, which is why I think that human oversight is still incredibly important when we're talking about using AI in our PPC strategies. So the key to making this work is building, obviously, a solid accountability framework. In my experience, or what I've figured out so far, there's 3 key elements, even though I know I have 4 on my screen, but 2 of them are technically 1. So the first is a regular auditing process. So what you don't want to do is very similar to what you don't want to do in Google Ads, set it and forget it. But you want to make sure that you have maybe like a quarterly or maybe semi-annual auditing process where you just go through your tools and just make sure that they're still doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're still collecting the same data. They're still using it the same way. And who has access to it has also remained the same. Detailed documentation of your AI configurations and its decisions is also a good one. This one will help us actually maintain that communication gap that we're having with our clients and that transparency gap that we're going to have with our clients, because it's making X, Y, Z decisions. So when we notice a performance change, then going backwards and trying to figure out what happened is a lot harder than if we were able to identify when AI made XYZ change, and then we just go backwards and look at our notes. And then clear lines of responsibility. So in 2025, our plan is to actually assign one person AI responsibility, essentially. So they'll be the ones who we consult when we're talking about adding new features. They're the person who will be regularly auditing. They're the ones who are going to keep the clear documentation. And I think this is better in the sense that we don't have too many hands in the pot. We'll have one person who kind of already knows what's happening, and then they're at least responsible for that regular auditing and all that wonderful stuff. So yeah, so that's basically our plan for 2025. I don't really think it's about checking boxes. It's really kind of about creating sustainable practices that we can take that will help us protect ourselves and also our clients. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ameet, for sharing your unique perspectives and insights with us in the zone. If you'd like to connect with Ameet, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Ameet, be sure to type it into the chat right now if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn, as we are about to get started with our live panel. So let's bring all our speakers back onto the screen now. This is PPC Zone December 2024, and we're talking about In PPC We Trust. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of Inside Google Ads. I created this event to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I'm here with Abby Nelson, founder at True Pono Consulting, who just spoke about Google Ads and healthcare. I'm here with Andy Cooney, co-founder at Marcode, who just spoke about ad hijacking in paid search. And I'm here with Ameet Khabra, founder at Hopskip Media, who just spoke about transparency and accountability in AI-driven PPC campaigns. Thank you once again to our exclusive sponsor, Optmyzr, one of the leading automation PPC management suites to help you run your Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and paid social ads. Thanks to Optmyzr, I can continue to bring you this live global event with standout speakers every month so we can continue to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Well, we have had quite a few questions come into the chat here, and I have a few questions for each of you as well. So why don't we start with one that's come up for Abby? I think we can all relate to getting that dreaded flag on our campaigns of like disapproval, healthcare and personalized advertising. So we've had two questions about that. First, Adrian Bourget says, have you ever had struggles by being accepted on Google when you're in this niche in healthcare? You know, do you ever get blocks? And how do you get through those blocks? And a similar question came in from Sophie Fell. You know, how do you overcome the often received ad disapproval of health and personalized advertising? Any best practices you can share to help us out?
Yeah, great questions. For Google, we do have some difficulties with healthcare. A lot of times we'll get disapprovals, or we can have accounts actually suspended. And that mainly relates to the pharma. And so for pharma industries, in order to advertise for those, you have to have a certification. The most common one is Legit Script, and that's both for Google Ads as well as Meta and Facebook ads as well. So you have to submit that in order to advertise there. Now, typically just for the healthcare vertical specifically, as long as we're following all the rules, playing in the sandbox with Google, we're not advertising anything that's pharma related or anything that's considered a sensitive healthcare category, we don't typically have a lot of problems on getting our Google ads up and running. Specific to, I believe it was Sophie's question, does ad disapproval. So yeah, we actually do have to fight Google a lot on getting ads through, because the health and personalized advertising is definitely a problem. However, in the US specifically, ads can still serve if they have that health and personalized advertising. They're not technically disapproved. They'll still be able to show. So even though Google throws up that red flag, they still are able to show in the US. Now, I do know that the European Union, there are some different things there where, people have to have that consent in order to show anything personalized. But what I always recommend is just avoid the use of you and your within your ad copy. And a lot of times you can get around those flags.
That's a really interesting tip, Abby, because often we tell people for copywriting purposes that using you and your in your headlines and descriptions is helpful. And actually, Google has a study about that improves click-through rate. But can also get you potentially flagged here for health and personalized advertising. So thank you for sharing that tip.
A little tip is that I will use, find can I find a healthcare provider near me instead? And for some reason, Google will allow that through, but they don't like the use of you and your.
Me instead of you. Okay, we're all head nodding here. Yes, we are going to use that now. Now over to you, Andy. You spoke to me about ad hijacking, which is an issue that I hadn't heard of before you applied to ppc.zone. And I think a lot of people hadn't heard of before. So would love if you could share a little bit, like, how did you discover this was a widespread issue? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so when we started building Marco, we were running out, we were going out and checking ads just, all the time, seeing what was happening, because it was driven by, I worked in a big PPC agency. We weren't getting any insights back from Google. Really, more insights were being taken away. So we thought we'll go out and give people more insights. And we just saw this thing where there were these advertisers who didn't match the brands running these ads. And we just couldn't believe that it was happening on such a wide scale. So then we've used Marco to understand how big a scale this is on. And I would say probably 50% of the people that I talk to and quite a lot of our customers that we work with just had no idea that this was going on at all. And many of them have done things like they weren't paying for brand search because it wasn't incremental, which had opened up the door to this happening. Or they'd purposely, pulled back in certain areas, which again had given rise to that happening. And unless you sort of spot it or you're looking specifically at the data, you just don't know that it's happening. And I think it's a real, hidden menace in a lot of paid search campaigns that's really, really negatively impacting performance.
Definitely. And then Ameet, I know something, you and I have spoken about before related to your talk today is all these different tools and things and features businesses need to use to help improve that transparency and accountability. There's things like consent mode and enhanced conversions and offline conversion tracking and on and all these different features in Google Ads that are easier when someone works with a company like yours, Hopskip Media, much more challenging when it's freelancers or small businesses trying to do all this stuff. And so my question for you is, of all these things that we are being told to do by Google, different, privacy things and conversion tracking things and all that, is there one that you believe is like the most important starting point from someone who's trying to manage this new landscape?
Oh gosh, what a question. I think the easiest is going with the enhanced conversions right now. So if we're looking at it in terms of for me, especially when I want to do something, I'll start with the easiest task to get that ball rolling. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. That's my answer. Enhanced conversions, and then tackle the harder stuff once you have a little bit of confidence in yourself.
Got it. And for those who may not be familiar, how would you explain what enhanced conversions are?
Oh gosh. Worst time for my mind to go blank, hey?
I know it's passing more data to Google, right? Something about sending more data to Google.
Yeah, it's essentially passing more data to Google. It's just kind of giving it more accurate information. I had a way of saying it, but now it's not coming to me. Oh my gosh.
In Ameet's defense, we got her to wake up early and be here with us today. So thank you, Ameet, for joining us.
I usually don't get up this early. I know that sounds very privileged, but it's just an amazing life that I get to live now.
Of course. And so it's interesting with, trying to get all these things in place. But Abby, I imagine when you're working in the healthcare vertical, you spoke about a few of these different things like remarketing that you can't use in the healthcare vertical. So when we're talking about these privacy protecting and data enhancing features in Google Ads, like enhanced conversions or offline conversion tracking, can you use these with healthcare clients, or are there also kind of restrictions or limitations in place there, or customer match, for example?
Yeah, that's a really, really highly debated subject that we go back and forth with Google on. So yeah, we do not want to utilize enhanced conversions because it's tracking offline conversions. So we don't know what those are, and we don't know where Google is using that data. So yeah, I would always recommend to clients that we would not use enhanced conversions. And again, customer match list, it's an absolute no-go, just because it's that HIPAA compliant data that we just don't want to put any client at risk of being exposed to that.
And I know you specialize in the healthcare vertical. Are there other verticals you worked with that experience similar limitations? Like, what are some industries that are not healthcare, but like healthcare, that may also see some of these restrictions? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, so like health insurance, senior living, finances, they do have their own regulations. It's not as strict as healthcare, thank goodness. So we are able to utilize, remarketing and customer match lists there. We just have to be careful with that data.
Interesting. And Andy, what about you? What kind of industries do you typically see as being the ones most challenged by this ad hijacking issue?
It's interesting because the specific hijacking issue is where there's not super high CPCs, such as retail, e-commerce, travel affected a lot. But then on that point of affiliates going rogue, not necessarily hijacking, in regulated industries like health, gambling, etc., things like that, there can be, you have to have very tight control about what anyone affiliated with you is saying. So there's a different challenge around that, whereby you might not necessarily know what they're saying in their copy, etc., things like that. So there's a different use case for monitoring, copy for regulated industries as well. And I think the thing that links all of it is just having some guidelines as to what anyone internally at your team is doing and saying via copy, or anyone who's associated with you as well.
It seems to be the common theme among all three of your talks, which is why I brought you together today under this theme, in PPC we trust. Having clear guidelines, whether those are legal guidelines you have to follow, Google policies you have to follow, or just your own business guidelines you need to create, so that we are able to drive great results for clients, but also comply with Google platform policies and legal policies as well. So before I let you all go for today, we have three great practitioners here. I have to ask a few questions about some of the things you're seeing, enjoying, not enjoying so much in Google Ads right now. So first, something we see a lot of conversation around is match types, kind of the swing towards, do we use broad match, or do we try to keep things really tight with exact match? So acknowledging that the answer is usually it depends, acknowledging that. Is there a certain keyword match type that is your favorite these days, or that you find yourself leaning more towards? I'm going to start with you, Andy. Any favorite keyword match type these days?
So where I was more active in the running of PPC campaigns working in agency, broad was favored a lot, but with very tight controls. And interestingly, we're tracking search results, and I see a ton of, on our clients, competitors, or not even competitors, people loosely related to them who've got similar names matching to them because they haven't used negative lists that, like Abby mentioned. So I was always use broad to the best of its ability, but you have to have very tight control and stringent, negative lists and stay on top of that.
Got it. So going broad, but lots of negatives versus, the more tight in. What about you, Abby? Is there a match type you're preferring these days?
I just miss the old match types of 4 or 5 years ago. But I recommend using mainly phrase match, and then with just a handful of your top performing keywords being broad match, just to comply, with Google. I do always advise that, if you're using a max conversion strategy, obviously broad match, that's how Google operates the best. But if you're using max clicks for any variety of reasons, just stick strictly to phrase and exact match. And I also recommend on brand terms for healthcare specifically that you utilize just exact match, because it can match you up with a lot of brands that are irrelevant.
Those close variants. Yeah. What about you, Ameet? Is there a match type you're preferring these days?
I think for me, it's kind of like a little bit of a process. I like starting with phrase. It gives me a bit more control. And then eventually, once I've got that negative really mined out, then I'll maybe consider switching over to broad. We did something similar to a client maybe a year ago, and it was absolutely wonderful. That campaign's been just running beautifully since. So I've got at least enough evidence that it's working for us.
And that's all we want, right? That it's working. Yeah, I found I used to be a phrase gal, and now I'm more on the extremes. It's either we have a small budget and I'm really favoring exact these days, or we have a larger budget conversion history and I'm going towards broad. So phrase used to be my darling, but Sorry, phrase, not as much these days. Well, thank you so much to the three of you for joining us today and sharing your unique insights with us. Really appreciate you taking the time and energy to share your unique perspectives and insights at PPC Zone. Our next event will be at the end of January 2025. Yes, 2025. I am currently scheduling our January, February, March, and April 2025 events. So if you have applied to PPC Zone, you can expect to hear from me soon. And if you would like to apply to speak at an upcoming PPC Zone event, you can do so on our website at ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. You can follow me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on future events. Thank you one more time to Optmyzr, our exclusive sponsor, for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.